The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, founder, author, and financial advisor Mark Bernstein helps high-performing business owners turn their visions into reality. Through his innovative work and the Forward Focus forums, Mark connects entrepreneurs to resources that fuel their success. Founders Forum is a radio show and podcast where entrepreneurs share their journeys, revealing the lessons they've learned and the stories behind their success. Join Mark and his guests for a mix of inspiration, valuable insights, and a little fun. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, America. How are you? This is Mark Bernstein. This is Founders Forum. I'm in the studio with our guest Armon, and our engineer Eric. And I said, good morning, America. This is one of those days you have to work at making a good morning. If the weather's a little crummy, it's raining. And personally, I may have mentioned this on the radio because my voice has been a little weak lately. I came back from Florida doing the shows and living down there, and I got walloped with allergies. And as a result, it's been like every day I got to kind of pump myself up to get my voice going, to get my attitude going. So it's one of these days. Today I pulled out my old tool of affirmations that I've recorded on my phone, and I played them and I repeated them and things just to get me going that, and remind me what a great day I have planned, because I get to do 2 radio shows today. I get to talk to 2 of my favorite clients today. I get to meet a new potential client. For me, it's an exciting day. That's how what do you do? Do you ever have days you're down, Armon, and you have to
Oh, absolutely.
And what do you do to change that?
I'm big into meditation, so I try and start there if I can in the morning and try and reset myself. But in lieu of that, a lot of coffee.
There you go. That helps too. Mine is matcha tea, but I gotcha. Gotcha matcha. Just a little about that. So listen, for our topic of the day, I just wanted to talk a little bit. Armon and I were talking about different situations. We were talking a little bit about boundaries and how they can come into relationships, because both of us are in situations where our clients can be our friends and our friends can be our clients, and we might have a third or fourth kind of a relationship with them, and whether it's public service on boards or that kind of thing. How do you deal with that situation, Armon?
Well, as we were speaking about, it's a very challenging situation when you start to mix friendships, business, money, all of those things sort of into the same soup, if you will. And with some people, it's very easy. I'm lucky enough to have some friends that the boundaries are natural, and you can kind of see them as you're speaking to the other person, and you're both aware, and you can make conscious decisions around that. But when it does get muddy, I have to say I do struggle with the balance between the business outcome, the friendship outcome, especially if that person also represents long-term business or is across multiple milieus within my life. So I try and talk through it, and I try and explain my decisions as best I can, and hope that it is received with the same grace that I attempt to deliver it.
First of all, it's very thoughtful, the fact that you even are thinking about that, because I wonder how many people actually even do,
True.
Right? So number one. And number two, because I've been doing this, I've mentioned before, there's a course that I've taken called Create Powerful, and I've done some coaching around that for several years now. And in that, we talk about the use of domains. And domains can be areas of your life or areas of your relationships. So as an example, what I try to do now is, if I have a friend who's becoming a client, or a client who I see is becoming a friend, to say, hey, this is really nice. Our relationships evolved in some other things, but we have to be careful of boundaries sometimes. I don't want to be in a social setting let's say we go out to dinner on a Saturday night, and I bring up a business issue that you may not necessarily be in the mood for, or there's other people around, and of course you don't want them to hear it, and things like that. And vice versa, it may work that way. So what I might say to them is, I tend to think of things in domains. So we have the friendship domain, and we have the business domain, and we might also have we are on a board together, so we have the board domain. And is it okay with you, Armon, if I see it, or if you see it as well, we point out to each other, hey, right now we're in the business domain, let's put a wrapper around the friendship domain, for example, while we're doing this. Or we're in the board setting, let's not necessarily go into the business or the friendship domain, because we're here to do a job for this particular nonprofit that we're working on, or whatever it is. And are you okay with that? Because then we can point that out to each other. And if we're together and there's a need to switch domains, we can be conscious about that, and we can switch into another domain.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't think of it. Because...
Well, I didn't either, so I just want to point that out. But I love to be around brilliant people and pick up things.
Absolutely. And so, because I'm often on the back foot when it comes to that, and I am having that conversation after the awkward conversation has already happened. So, I think I'm going to take that advice myself and try and be a little more thoughtful and explicit about that sort of upfront, especially with new relationships. I think that the idea of domains and boundaries is a really strong strategy.
So we are here you're a radio guest, so we're in the domain of the radio show podcast right now. But we met in a different domain because we're mutual members at the Union League of Philadelphia. That's how we met. So we have two domains now, and from the way this is going, I could see us entering into a third domain of a kinship, of some kind. So it's pretty cool. So let me introduce my new friend, Armon Vincent. I say it because I knew a couple guys named Armon. So I'm sorry,
don't worry, it's the most common pronunciation.
But anyway, Armon Vincent is a seasoned healthcare and life sciences technology executive with a track record of innovation, leadership, and entrepreneurship. He is the founding partner of Catalyst Technology Partners, and as that, he is helping companies harness emerging technologies to redefine current offerings and launch new products. And kind of fascinating, the work that he's doing. So welcome officially, first of all, Armon.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So this is a show about entrepreneurs and their stories. And we talked a little bit about, because I can usually track something that, where I see that, how did you become an entrepreneur? And we were talking about this, and you didn't have a family that were entrepreneurs. You didn't have any model for that. So how did that come about? And then let's talk about your history a little bit.
So for me, it was, I spent a lot of time alone as a kid, as I was actually telling you earlier. And so I developed my own, independent rubric for how I thought about the world. And once I got into my professional career, I would see things that I thought I could do differently, or an opportunity in the market for technology, at least, that, I thought was going to be the next area to be. And so I always went for it. I never thought about it in terms of risk, betting on myself. It was always just, okay, this is the idea. How do I execute it? I want to go execute it. And especially when I was much younger, the concept of maybe I'll fail or maybe I shouldn't do this just never entered my mind, really.
You were fearless.
Well, young, let's just say.
Okay. Well, that's sometimes where fearlessness comes from.
Yes.
Not knowing any better, right?
And now it's been such a pattern throughout my life. I've had successes and failures and, good days and bad, but now it's just how I operate. I can't imagine my life in any other way or fashion. It's sort of, now I'm an old dog that you can't teach new tricks to. So,
well, except that I think you're working on some new tricks, right? In a way,
absolutely. AI is absolutely the latest and the new. But I've actually been in AI since 2007.
You had said that. By the way, I have to tell you, AI comes into almost every show we have now, regardless of the business. There's some, it's hard to avoid because it's everywhere now. It's ubiquitous.
It's ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. Thank you.
It's funny with AI. I started in 2007, and I built a system that was analyzing early comments in message boards and forums, and this is pre-Facebook. This is pre-Instagram and all of that, and we was using some early forms of natural language processing, and it was in healthcare. All the clients I was going to, first I had to explain what AI was. Then half of them would laugh at me and say, that's going to go nowhere.
You were calling it that then?
Yeah, because it was called that then.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the number of people who laughed me out of rooms and presentations saying, AI, that there's no way to prove that. That's ridiculous. It took, I spent more of my time in client education than I did actually selling anything.
Sounded like science fiction then, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or they just thought it was completely fake and I was making it up. So there was that too.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a long slog in the
Another
beginning.
form of fiction. Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And so, then we get to the present day, and now it's on everybody's lips, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's using ChatGPT and et cetera. So it's just a wild ride for me.
And by the way, it seems like a year ago people were just starting to talk about it, and now it's everywhere.
Absolutely. And this is just the very, very beginning.
Yeah. I only know, not that I'm an expert, but I've had so many people on who are in it like you are every day that's what everyone says. It's just we're just scraping the surface right now.
This is going to be a larger revolution than I think even the Industrial Revolution. I mean, it is one of the largest inventions of humanity.
So let's talk about your story and what you've been doing. So how you got in the business, and let's talk about that because believe it or not, already we only have about 4 minutes to break.
Okay.
So we'll do that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about challenges and future and things like that.
I started out my career building in the late 90s, building websites for pharmaceutical companies, working in pharmaceutical marketing and advertising firms. Worked my way up into the very, very early 2000s into an executive position, doing what they call digital at that point. I had an idea for a company to do what I was talking about with AI and natural language processing to understand the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of people who were commenting online about products, brands, and therapies. Built that company up. I didn't think I could be the CEO of that company, so I brought someone in to do that, and I was the product guy. We ended up exiting from that company positively in about 4 years.
How long ago was this?
This was actually about 5 years. So this we exited in 2015.
Okay.
Sorry, 2013.
And 12 years ago.
And then I spent a couple years consulting. Then I started the last company I had, which is Custom House. In Custom House, it was a software development shop. We developed software for hire. About 70% of our clients were healthcare. Most of our business was really using AI and bringing that into startups, into existing businesses, everything from Thomson Reuters to greenfield, blank sheet, freshly funded startups.
Can you give an example of how somebody, so Thomson Reuters is not a healthcare company as such, but give an example of how you would bring AI into healthcare, if you don't mind.
So, for example, with Thomson Reuters, we were looking at helping them analyze publications at scale, especially scientific and health-related publications, and helping them glean different data. I can't go into too many specifics there, but glean data from that. Other healthcare startups that we worked with a company to help them develop a chatbot system that could speak to young children who were in emotional distress and use AI to screen those kids at scale and monitoring for things like self-harming words and bullying, etc. But that gave them the scale, so that way you knew who to funnel to, what counselors, what was a light issue, what was a heavy issue, a system to rope in caregivers, teachers, parents, all of it.
Right.
Other things, voice assistants for nursing homes. If you remember the Amazon Echo,
Sure.
that first device, We built an analog to that.
Pre-Alexa, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We built an analog to that was deployed in the elder care market. So it was really looking at AI as how does AI help. At that point, it was just how does it help you scale and how does it help you gain efficiency?
You know what? This is a really good jumping off point for our commercial break. So we'll be right back on Founders Forum.
Do you suffer from acne, eczema, or psoriasis? Are you worried about your moles and need a skin cancer screening? Are you experiencing hair loss? Would you like to rejuvenate your skin without surgery? Dr. Hess and his team are here to help. Center City Dermatology is a premier medical practice with locations in both Center City, Philadelphia and Exton, PA. Dr. Stephen Hess and his team provide comprehensive, contemporary, and customized skincare to patients of all ages. Their services include medical dermatology, dermatological surgery, and pediatric dermatology. They also offer a full range of aesthetic and cosmetic services, including Botox, filler injections, laser treatments, and hair restoration. They're accepting new patients and take most insurance plans, including Medicare. Call today to schedule an appointment. 267-687-4437 for the Philadelphia location or 484-237-2433 for the Exton location, or visit centercitydermatology.com.
We're back on Founders Forum, and with our guest today, Armon Vincent, who really is a multifaceted serial entrepreneur. And we're just getting into the story a little bit. So let's talk about Custom House a little bit. You built that up. And how many employees, as an example, did you have?
So at our height, we got to 32.
Okay. And were some of them offshore?
Yes. We had tried every type of offshoring. We had people in India, Philippines, and then finally sort of had the most success with Colombia, South America.
I thought I remember that. Yeah, that's amazing. And that company still operates?
Yes.
How did you build culture, given that most of your customers were offshore?
So with our employees all being remote at one point, for even before COVID, we were 100% remote.
You were ahead of the curve. It's helpful that you knew how to do that already.
Yeah, it was very natural for us. It was, you put the tools in place. So we always had Slack, then Teams, all of that. And we would meet on such a regular basis that it was just like being in constant conversation like you were in a cubicle. Sometimes what we would do is just open up the line and have everybody completely open. So you were almost in a true virtual office. So, you could just say anything you wanted at any moment and someone was responding because it was, each team, say a 7-person team, they would have an open voice line right there in text. And that really helped us build cohesion and make sure that people are talking to one another and exchanging ideas. But also that starts with hiring, and it starts with screening the people beyond just their capabilities, really understanding them. How are they going to work on a team? What's their approach to their work? And then trying to be as choiceful as you can about integrating the right people into the team, even if the skill sets aren't perfect.
I know because of another conversation we had in prep that getting to know people on as deep a level as is appropriate in a business situation is important to you.
Very.
So it sounds like you do that work up front. And then what is the ultimate outcome of the culture you're trying to, what's the most important part of your culture at Custom House, I guess would be the way to ask you.
The most important part is the true teamwork breeds innovation, but only if you remove the gotcha, is what I say. So there's no finger pointing. There's no, you have to give people room to fail. And you sometimes have to reward failure, saying you took the risk. I get that didn't work. Doesn't matter. We're moving on. Or we have a bug or some kind of issue. I don't care why or how. We're going to work as a team. We're going to fix it. You have to get rid of the gotcha, especially if you remove physical presence, because people can't read your body language to see that you're not mad. They're just reading words you're typing. And so if you don't create that culture, I think that's a huge part of remote work.
So I love that. Get rid of the gotcha. It's really a great great example. In the next studio is a friend of mine visiting with another friend of mine. Pretty interesting. I have to say that's pretty interesting. Anyway, sorry about that. So the company culture, we're talking about that. Now, Custom House has really become a mature business at this point.
It is.
And you've started another company. You want to talk about that transition at all?
Yeah, so as we are finishing our exit of Custom House, we now started a new business called Catalyst Technology Partners. And really, we're taking the opportunity to no longer build software for people, but it's a fractional CTO business and focused on helping private equity and VCs really inject AI into the business, into the businesses that they have in a portfolio, specifically in healthcare, then healthcare startups, and then also mature healthcare companies who have products that now need to find a way to add AI to them. And none of these companies may have the internal skill. They may not have CTOs, and they need that experience, but they don't need it forever. They need it 3, 6 months, maybe 9 months to get up and working, framework, procedures, and policies in place, and then they can keep on going down the road.
Gotcha. So, and tell us about the new venture.
So that is the yeah. So that we've just started.
Well, I guess the differences in terms of between what you were doing, what you're doing
now. We are not going to build anything. We would build from scratch to the full solution. This is just working at the C-suite level to really take all the knowledge we have from building everything from product management to all of the development operations, hiring engineering teams, understanding how those budgets work and how to configure those teams to get the best outcomes. Now we want to take all that experience and apply it from the C-suite at the individual companies in which we're working with.
If I were to sum it up from what we talked about, the two companies, one was you were an agent of creation. Now you're like an agent of change, really going into companies.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, it's sort of, I consider it a natural maturation process.
Yeah, gotcha.
You start off early in your career, starting to work on a team to build things, and now you're really creating products, and then you eventually get into executive management, and that's sort of what the path my companies have taken.
Makes sense. So what challenges do you see ahead for this company, if any?
There's the biggest challenge is going to be scaling, because finding the right talent to bring in and making sure that our revenue model supports that is going to be the difficult piece, because it's a very new area, and I haven't perfected my rubric of how I'm going to vet the people and bring them into the right situation to build that culture I was talking about.
Right. So in a way, you're kind of like a search firm / fractional share, obviously, CTO company, but searching for talent's a big part of it.
Yes, absolutely. And
matching talent.
The way it's structured almost like a law firm in terms of how it'll work. But yeah, finding the talent is going to be the hardest point. I really need to find executives who are willing to take some risk out on their own. There is some P&L responsibility that they would have to take. But have the large company experience that it takes to really understand the challenges that our clients are going through.
And I would also imagine you have to match personality to cultures and to companies.
Absolutely.
As well. Yeah. So
absolutely. So I'm going to need many crayons in the box.
Right. So it's a new set of skills almost you're developing in order to be able to do this.
Absolutely.
Now you're in the people business as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that's what makes it fun.
Of course. Yeah, that's great. And I know you'll do great at it because you're a great people person, as I know too.
Oh, thank you.
So we always talk about the future. So Armon, if we were sitting here today a year from now, and we're looking back on the last year, what would have to happen in business? But if you want to go into other domains as well, personally, what would that look like for that year to have been a successful period in your life?
So it's going to be about the client transformations we can create. In a year from now, I really want to be working with private equity to transform some portfolios. and to really help them drive and see AI injected into traditional businesses and what we can do there, because I think that's a huge model I want to put out in the world.
Almost like getting them to see the possibilities in the businesses that they're investing in.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And how you can deploy AI as a service across your portfolio.
Right.
I think that's a huge, I want that to happen. Then on the other end, I'd love to be involved in some great new products and help them develop their AI strategy within their products and incorporate that into their product management, from even, especially with healthcare, understanding the ethical side of it all the way through delivery. I think those are my 2 milestones I'm trying to hit.
So it's like you're going into the people business, and then you're seeping back into the product development business in a sense as well.
Yeah,
They're very
it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
It really is, because the people create the products, and without the right mindset and strategy, you're not going to get there.
Yep. So we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to ask you one question so we let our guests pick the questions that and you've picked one that many pick, and I love this question, which is, if you could speak to your younger self, what advice would you give you? And then I'm going to come back at you with some other questions after that, because we have another minute or two.
So when I was thinking about this, I think the number one piece of advice I would have given myself is to very early on spend as much time with people outside of your area of expertise as possible. Especially in engineering, it becomes a very insular thing, and you're, geek speak geek, and you kind of go down that road. And that was much to my detriment, and I had to work very hard later to develop networks and connections to people that other people already had, because they had looked at networking in an entirely different way. So I would say, get out of your own echo chamber, go jump into as many others as you can, and start to fill your life with as many different disciplines as possible.
Great. It's really wise advice, and especially because I see it a lot with engineers. It's but obviously all different kinds of disciplines. I know many lawyers that don't get much out of the lawyer world, and it's a similar issue. Are you a reader?
I am. When time allows, I am, because most of my time is spent inside of technical books and manuals. So
let's say, aside from technical books, do you have a favorite book, or a book that you're reading now, or that you'd like to read?
I'm always perusing what's the top 10 business book out there. And so I haven't had a chance to look lately, but at my next opportunity, I'll be looking at the New York Times top 10 business books and seeing what's the zeitgeist out there, because I'd like to know what my clients are thinking.
That's a great place to look. And I think, actually, as it works out, that's all the time we have today for Founders Forum. So, Armon, thanks so much. Fascinating talking to you. Thanks.